peace that we enjoy in Nigeria, Nigeria is ranked 144 when it has to do with the Global Peace Index, in 2024 survey that was carried out, So it goes to show that we don't enjoy peace when we are ranked 144 and when we are ranked number 8 when it has to do with terrorism. Now, terrorism for me, there are acts of terrorism that are scaring people away. For instance, kidnapping for ransom is on the rise, right? Terrorism is not about suicide bombing alone. So when people ask questions, how did they come up with that report that Nigeria is ranked number 8 when it has to do with terrorism globally? The answer is simple. Kidnapping is also an act of terrorism. Kidnapping is on the rise in this country. Nigerians are paying heavily for ransom in this country. The last MBS report that came out in the last 1 year, of course, you are aware that over 2.2 trillion naira was paid as ransom by Nigerians. So a whole lot is wrong. We see situations where critical government infrastructure are being destroyed. For instance, electrical installation. Sometimes we hear that the Shiroro electric power station has been brought down by bandits. Sometimes we hear the power station in Yobe State has been brought down and all that. So all these are acts of terrorism. So in the event where we are experiencing these destructions and all these acts of terrorism continuously, to the point that it has almost become a norm, it has become normal in our society. Now, what do you expect when these surveys are carried out? So, for economy to thrive, for employment to create enough enabling employment for our teeming youths and all that, we must have an enabling environment where we won't have insecurity issues. But even at that, countries also experience some kind of insecurity challenges as well. But there's a lot that we need to do in our own part of the world to see that we try to see how to manage these issues. What's his name? Emily Duncan, a French sociologist, said that a society without crime is impossible. So that's enough notice for us to be aware that we live in a society where we will keep encountering or experiencing crime. But what are the measures that, as a government, as security agencies, what are they putting in place to see that they curb these issues of insecurity?
Well, talking about the president trying to woo in investors, do you think the present administration is trying too hard in terms of fighting insecurity compared to the past administration?
Yeah, if you want to begin to look at it, I think what the current government has done is a continuation of what the previous government has done. For instance, if you look at terrorism, suicide bombing. Before the last administration, that's General Muhammadu Buhari's administration, before 2015, there were some areas in Abuja that we don't usually drive our vehicles through. Our roads were blocked. You saw how close suicide bombings came into the city and the suburb, Nyanya, the UN house, and all that. Yeah. Even the force headquarters, the police headquarters, you saw how close suicide bombing came, and all that. But that was during the reign of former President Goodluck Jonathan. But when Buhari came from 2015, there was a drastic reduction in acts of terrorism, such as suicide bombing. It reduced drastically. If I get my figures right, from about 641 or so, it reduced to about 120 attacks. So that's a drastic reduction. During the period that Buhari was there. And the death rate, when it has to do with suicide or terror-related incidents, death rate reduced from over 5,000 to about 320 or so of people that died, But when this government came in, we saw some hotspots somewhere around Maiduguri when we started experiencing some kind of suicide bombing as well, I think that the reason why that came up was because the immediate past chief of army staff of blessed memory, last year around May 29th, when he was giving out his scorecard of successes recorded under his reign as chief of army staff, he said the era of suicide bombing was gone. And the Boko Haram fighters and all that wanted to send a message that no, the fact that we are not carrying out acts of suicide bombing doesn't mean that we are no longer there or we are not there. So they had to test the waters and carried out some suicide bombings that led to the lives of over 30 persons that died in Maiduguri. But by and large, terrorism is still very minimal, it has reduced, but kidnapping has increased.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for ransom, it has increased very seriously. And the reason why we are experiencing a spike in kidnapping for ransom is because terrorists have gone into suicide bombing, into kidnapping, because they need the resources or the monies that they make from kidnapping for ransom to expand their network, to sustain their living, to see how to boost the morale of their members, to see how to use such resources to recruit more vulnerable Nigerians into their fold, right? Then bandits also have gone into kidnapping because they also need the resources, to see how to expand their network, buy more weapons, buy more ammunition, to see how to carry acts of banditry. Of course, now we experience crowdfunding. They will kidnap certain persons from their community. You see that the community members are putting monies together. They also go as far as holding a whole community hostage, levying them, asking them for a certain amount of money in hundreds of millions of naira. And these poor people that are living in these very rural communities that are struggling to survive, you see them putting resources together to pay these bandits, So terrorists also have gone into kidnapping for ransom. Bandits also have gone into kidnapping for ransom. But kidnappers themselves, those ones that are into kidnapping, are also there, kidnapping for ransom as well. Now you see that there's less armed robbery, right? Because there's more risk when you go into robbery than kidnapping, right? Because when you go into robbery and you're on the highway, the more time you spend on the highway looking for commuters or people that are driving past and you want to rob them of their valuables and resources and all that, you take a risk. It's a serious risk compared to when it has to do with kidnapping. Because as you're on the road waiting for people to come, there's a possibility of you running into the law enforcement agents that are armed, right? But kidnappers just come into the road, pick who they want to pick, and they go into our forest, and begin to see how to keep their victims in the forest and begin to put a call across to their family members asking for ransom, So that has made kidnapping for ransom to be on the rise. And of course, the motivation behind kidnapping for ransom is the money. It's business for them, but though it's on the illegal side. Because when it has to do with kidnapping for ransom, we are talking about demand and supply here. In the event where your loved ones is held or are held hostage, and the kidnappers are asking for a certain amount of money, or whatever negotiation that you guys arrive at, you give them what they are asking for. At the end of the day, they will now release your...
Sometimes they release,
sometimes they don't release. Now, I did my PhD thesis on kidnapping for ransom, and it gave me the opportunity to interact with kidnappers. The kind of risk that we have taken to see that certain criminal activities or criminalities are reduced drastically, I don't think some people that are even in the security agency sector have taken that kind of risk. I interacted with quite a number of kidnappers during my PhD thesis, and I was made to understand from them that it is not all of them that are kidnapped for ransom that kill. That the ones that kill mostly are Boko Haram members that went into kidnapping, that kidnap, even when ransom is paid, they still kill the victim. So I got that information from my interaction with kidnappers when I had this interview with them. Now, when we look at all that, you see that there are some crime that has reduced, some have increased drastically. And what is booming now, I'm very sorry to say, unfortunately, is kidnapping for ransom. And I've appeared on different forums and I've said that from what I've seen, from my interaction with them, it's unfortunate that kidnapping for ransom has come to stay.
Well, we know that bandits and then terrorists, they commit heinous crimes.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, do you agree with most of these governors that want to negotiate with bandits?
You see, there's something that is wrong, and I want to advise that we should not start what we cannot continue. As a professional, I am against negotiation with bandits, because some governors have tried, and we saw that they failed. The former governor of Zamfara tried negotiating with bandits. What was the outcome? We now had breakaway faction. They now expanded. Some of them were not comfortable with the information that their leaders brought back to them, and they had to break out. When they left the faction that they belonged, they went and created their own faction. So it expanded their network. In Katsina, they tried negotiating with bandits. What was the outcome? Kaduna State, the current governor has negotiated with some kind of bandits around the Biringwari area and all that. For now, they are seeing some results, but how long will it fly or how long will it go? Now, we have our laws. We have the Terrorism Prevention Act that came up in 2013. From 2013 to now, it has gone through certain processes of amendment. You keep amending these laws to suit our current realities. What is our law? What's the law meant for? Is the law meant for man, or the law is meant for will I say animals? We have a situation where we have seen where about 800 repentant Boko Haram members, fighters were released and were asked to go and reintegrate. They reintegrated them back into the society. We have our laws. The laws is meant for people like this. Anybody that commit acts of terrorism, acts of banditry, kidnapping and all that, the laws are clear, the punishments are clear. Now, you are doing all these, negotiating with bandits that have killed people, made children orphans, made women widows, made men widowers. The IDP camps that we have in the north were caused by these criminal elements, bandits, terrorists, as a result of the killings that these rural communities experience. They have relocated from their ancestral homes and you have kept them in a makeshift, a temporary abode, feeding them and all that. And these criminals are the ones that caused this. At the end of the day, you said they have repented. At the end of the day, you say, as a government, you want to negotiate with these criminals.
And take care of them.
And take care of them. So,
why the people in IDP are suffering?
So now, it's unfortunate that the victims have been left alone. The government is interested in the perpetrators of these acts of criminality. And I keep saying it. What is wrong with our laws? Victims suffer from what criminals melt on them. At the end of the day, you see criminals asking for justice, asking for... I watched a video where a former commander of Boko Haram that claimed that he has repented was complaining on national television that the government is not taking care of him the way they promised and all that. So when you do all this, then the question is, wherein lies the justice for the victims? People that killed their parents, people that killed them, people that have made them to begin to live from hand to mouth, giving their livelihood to see that they live. At the end of the day, such people are pampered by government, and you say it's Operation Safe Corridor. At the end of the day, the victims are left. Now, the question is, what now serves as deterrence, that will prevent potential of people that want to go into such crime? In the event where they see that XYZ is in prison or XYZ has been killed as a result of these acts of criminality, it will send a message, and of course, to put them off, right? They would not think of going into such crime. But in the event where people that go into crimes like that, at the end of the day, they put them through a process, they say they have repented, they now empower them through one skill or the other. At the end of the day, they say, okay, go back and into the society where you have caused these heinous acts. The question now is, who monitors them? How do you know that they have gone back to their vomit? Which framework I placed? And I did my findings to know that they said the civilian JTF will monitor repentant Boko Haram members or Boko Haram fighters. How possible would that be? When the Boko Haram fighter can, any point get his arms and all that, then civilian JTF that is just moving with mere sticks and bow and arrow, and you think that monitoring them can fly. I think the government needs to see that they go back to the drawing board. Punishment should be melted to people that commit criminal acts, and it should be clear, right? So for me, as a security professional, I'm against negotiation. Why negotiate with criminals? At the end of the day, you started what you cannot continue. It means that each group that comes, you want to negotiate with them. At the end of the day, you become somebody or a government that they can play around with.
Yeah. Now, away from that, let's discuss sector governance in Nigeria. We all know that effective governance is crucial for accountability, transparency, and responsiveness to citizens' needs. Now, however, Nigeria faces challenges like corruption and inadequate oversight. Now, how can Nigeria improve its security sector governance, incorporating international best practices and ensuring transparency and accountability?
But beautiful question. The answer is simple. We have the police, we have the military, that's the army, the air force, and the navy. We have the civil defense, we have the customs, we have the immigration. All these are security agencies, right? And their mandates are clear. The police, detection and prevention of crime. The civil defense, protection of government critical infrastructure. The DSS, intelligence, local intelligence. The customs, see that contrabands are not smuggled into the country. Contrabands such as arms and ammunition and all that are not smuggled into the country. The immigration, immigrants don't come into the country because I have immigrants that come from Mali, Chad, and the likes, they come into this country, collaborate with our domestic criminals here to carry out acts of criminality. Now, if all the security agencies, we have about 29 of them, they were established for a purpose. Their mandates were clearly spelled out in the Act or the Constitution that established them. If we are ready as a people and as a government to do the right thing, tell me where we will miss it. We won't miss it. If the political will is there from our political leaders, the political elites, yes, this is what we need to do for our people. This is what we need to do to create employment. This is what we need to do to reduce poverty. This is what we do as a government to produce or to provide the dividends of democracy to our people, right? In the event we do all this, and we do it with integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody is watching you. How many Nigerians that are saddled with the responsibility of providing leadership, of providing security for the people, how many of them are doing the right thing when nobody is watching them? You know, what does that mean? A lot of them are corrupt. One of the past Accountant General of the Federation had to temper. He didn't see the ministry to temper with their budget. He had to temper with the defense budget. Is that a patriotic Nigerian that means well for this country? The answer is no. So we have a whole lot of them that are there. We have allowed politics to dominate the scene, the political scene, the security sector. People will see square pegs in round holes when it has to do with appointments, that has to do with security. When you go to the National Assembly, you see square pegs in round holes when it has to do with committees that are saddled with the responsibility of oversighting security agencies. So why must we continue to do that? We can't continue to do the same thing all over and over again and we expect a different result. We must see that we fight corruption in this country. Corruption is the bane, is our problem. And as I speak to you, Nigerians are in government, they are thinking of how to steal. Even when they are closing channels to see that they don't have access to these resources, they're also looking for other means to have access to this money. How well are they punished when they are caught? We have seen situations in this country where former governors were convicted by the EFCC, they were sentenced to jail for a period of time. The immediate past government of Buhari, what did he do? They pardoned them. The EFCC used our resources, public resources, to prosecute the case from the trial court up to Supreme Court. They got judgment. At the end of the day, the government of Buhari pardoned them. And you think that it won't weaken the EFCC?
Yeah.
It will weaken them. It will dampen their morale. So why won't the former governors face the penalty, the punishment for acts of corruption that they committed? So the international community are watching us. As a country, we shouldn't play politics with everything. So what I'm saying here is that for that question to manifest, for us to get results, we must be seeing that from top to bottom, we do the right thing. We can't expect Japanese or Americans to come and fix our country for us. It is we, the citizens of this country, that should fix our country, right? So let us do the right thing. If the event where we do the right thing, appointments are purely on professional basis. Mr. A is fit to be in XYZ position by way of his CV or his profile. But I give you an instance here. When you go to the Ministry of Defense, you have the Minister of Defense is an accountant. You have the Minister of State for Defense. He read something engineering from Yaba Technology. And both of them are ministers in the Ministry of Defense. Is it that the government is not aware that they took them to an unfamiliar terrain where they are not familiar with the events that are happening there when it has to do with security? Right. You have the Minister of Police Affairs, a former governor and an accountant. The Minister of State Police Affairs. No security knowledge. And they are there in the police affairs. And we're talking about prevention and detection of crime. You have the Ministry of Interior that has to do with immigration, the civil defense and the other